Ramadan is a newspaper of Sudan's opposition Communist Party. On June 6 this year, they ran an article on the doctors' strike here in Khartoum, which resulted in the arrest of doctors who were protesting poor work conditions. After the article ran, Sudan's ubiquitous internal security services came to demand that they would get to screen all of Ramadan's articles prior to publication. Late last week, the journalists of Ramadan took me round their premises in the building of Sudan's Communist Party. Suleiman Widar, pictured here, tells me that Ramadan refused the security services' demand for pre-publication screening, so security ordered that the printing press simply not print their paper. Ramadan is no stranger to operating under oppressive conditions. The paper was founded in 1954, before Sudanese independence. For the majority of its existence, it has operated underground. The exception to this rule came in Sudan's brief period of democracy from 1986 until 1989, when the current president, Omar al-Bashir, came to power in a military coup. In April 2007, Ramadan finally became legal. It was a concession to the ideal of the democratic transformation of Sudan that was supposed to occur following the 2005 signing of a comprehensive peace agreement between the ruling National Congress Party and the main southern party, the SPLM. Since that time, there has been censorship. The journalists here know that writing about the conflict in Darfur or about the International Criminal Court are red lines for the government. But since Ramadan became legalized, the paper has not faced the kind of ban that they are facing today. In the run-up to the elections, the government announced that pre-publication censorship would stop. But now the elections, widely believed to have been rigged, have handed Bashir and his National Congress Party a so-called democratic victory. Journalists here say that the government feels free to implement even more repressive measures than before. The Sudanese Communist Party is not the only opposition party to have been affected by the post-election crackdown on dissident voices. Just 2 weeks after Bashir won the election, the head of the People's Congress Party, Hassan al-Turabi, pictured here, was jailed for 45 days without charge. His party's newspaper was also banned, and 4 journalists from the paper were charged with crimes against the state. And it is not just newspapers affiliated with particular opposition groups that have fallen foul of the increased repression. As of 2 weeks ago, pre-publication censorship resumed across the board. Alfred Taban, pictured here, is the editor-in-chief of the independent English language daily, the Khartoum Monitor. With the wages of 50 staff to pay, he has decided to accept pre-publication censorship, at least for now, rather than face a ban on his paper. So every night, at around 8 o'clock, officers from the National Intelligence and Security Services come to the Khartoum Monitor's office and remove articles they don't like before the copy goes to the printing press. The day before I met with Taban, there had been protests in the southern capital of Juba by people who support the separation of southern Sudan in the upcoming January 2011 referendum. The security agents removed all articles about the demonstrations from the paper. Over at Ramadan, their refusal to accept this censorship has stopped them from publishing anything at all, but it hasn't stopped them working. Since the June 6 ban, the staff of Ramadan have kept working as usual, coming up with a paper each Sunday, Tuesday and Thursday. Every time they send their issue to the printers, and every time the printers are shut down by security services. But they're managing to find other ways to get their message out. This dusty old printer is what enables them to print around 15 black and white copies of each issue. They staple them together and hand them out for free to civil society organizations in the area. And they're also managing to publish on the web. While the government does sometimes block the Ramadan website, journalists say that the government's web censorship is not very sophisticated, so they're able to get their material out through other sites. Nevertheless, with no actual newspaper to sell, the entire staff are continuing to do this work on a voluntary basis. Journalist Mohammed Al-Fadeh used to bring home a salary of 400 Sudanese pounds a week. That's around $170. Since the ban, he gets nothing. The journalists here believe that international pressure could convince the Sudanese government to roll back the ban on Ramadan and the pre-publication censorship of other papers in Khartoum. The only real question is whether that pressure will come before journalists like Al-Fadeh can't afford to keep working without pay.